Hi, and welcome to the Unhinged History Podcast, the podcast where Angie and I both compulsively learn things, and we really, really hope that the other one's never heard it before. And
Or at least forgot it.
oh, yeah. And then we tell each other the story that our spouses have had to hear on repeat for the last several days as we've been. But wait, there's more. Did you know about this?
hmm
I'm
That's what
Teresa.
we do. I'm Angie. Hi.
Hello.
Oh, I'm delighted to bring you my story today.
Just going right into it.
I am because it's so silly. It just needs to be out. It's been inside me. It's been welling up. I need to get it out. And because of this silly story, the husband has sent me two additional topics.
Real quick, you called him the husband. I call mine Hubs. And we were looking on HBO Max. And as we're on that main screen, when you get in there, he looked on the left-hand side and, it's like all of the different things. But the last icon he could click on was labeled Hubs. And he went, "Why is my profile down here?" And I was like, "No, I don't think that is what you think it is. Like, I don't think, I think
That's
it means
adorable.
like an integration or, and he went, "Oh, yeah, that was a weird icon to put next to Hubs."
I love that. No, actually, typically I refer to him as the man.
Mm,
The man. The
yeah.
man says.
See, I have Hubs and the kid.
Yeah, I have the man, the boy, and the wee one.
Owen might
And
later regret or resent being called the wee one.
still, he doesn't mind. He's like, I
Okay.
am wee. It is true. I am small. He refers to it as I am mall.
That is adorable.
He's pretty stinking cute. And the boy he's about 6'2" now, but he still answers to the boy.
You know, being so much taller than my 4'11" grandmother, she would regularly make comments that she had no problem taking me out at the knee so she could look me in the eyes.
I have repeatedly said that to the boy. He now just sits down because he feels like that's slightly more respectful.
I never learned that with my grandmother. That might have really helped our relationship.
Well, now you know. She'd
Well,
have just sat down.
and she's past tense, so there's that. So
Oh, jeez. Sorry, Grandma.
next week in therapy.
Angie tells her therapist about how past tense Teresa's grandma is. My grandma was also only like 4'11". She was small.
Mm,
But let me tell you, she was spicy and deaf, like totally deaf, was a lip reader and sign language. But she could, if you, I'm not kidding, dude, the amount of time she would turn around and smack you upside your head if you said anything behind her. How do you
dang.
know? Can you feel it in your feet? How do you
I
know?
I bet she just wanted to turn around and beat you. Like if you had a ball gag in your mouth and you just couldn't make actually that sounds like you should be beaten anyhow. Um that took a turn.
Also in therapy next week.
This episode is titled Teresa Triggers Angie.
That's actually pretty perfect for my story. I'm
Oh my.
just saying,
What
but
a
not
beautiful
in the way
segue.
you think. Not in the way you think.
Oh
It's
no.
gonna be delightful.
What did I do?
Do you remember the other day when I texted you and said I'm officially a Lederhosen
It
master, like
I think it was
expert?
after reading two articles, I am now an official Lederhosen expert.
In fact, yeah.
Which I didn't know there was such a low threshold, but I didn't anticipate a high one.
Well, to be honest, I didn't know there was one at all. But I learned a lot in those two articles. And sidebar, it really has nothing to do with anything other than the man loves me so much that he found an article about Lederhosen and needed to share it.
That is so hyper specific.
Isn't it? And I
How
was
does
like,
one find themselves on a Lederhosen article?
well, when I tell you the name of my story, perhaps our Google has the algorithm is like, oh, you need to know this.
Oh, yes. The mind meld between Teresa and Angie is set at this time.
Indeed. Um, my story is a brief history of Liechtenstein. Are
The
you,
city, the castle, isn't, wait, Liechtenstein. What area did Heath Ledger's character from A Knight's Tale hail from?
he was Ulrich von Liechtenstein of Guilderland.
Yes, I pulled that. I knew that. I got Liechtenstein.
And we watched it last night just to confirm.
Okay.
So are you familiar at all with the history of Liechtenstein?
No, other than Heath Ledger's character's name.
Oh, then this is gonna be a doozy, and I am so excited to share it with
I
you.
am so grateful that I was able to pull that because typically I'll play these episodes back as I'm editing them and I'll be like, wow, I was really good at faking that I knew what I was talking about. And I was like, oh,
I
but
got it.
I literally pulled that out of the air. Okay, carry on.
Well done. Well done. So if you can just imagine Heath Ledger the entire time, this story will be even funnier.
That's easier for me.
Get perfect. So I'm gonna disclaimer my story by saying I set out to tell you a part of the story. But with everything I learned, I had to learn more. And with every more I learned, I had further questions. So here we are.
So this is the rabbit trail.
This is the story of rabbit trails. And I have like 57,000 sources. I'll just name the first few. Warhistoryonline.com.
Okay. Is there a specific article or just
It's,
in its entirety? You consumed all of it.
well, I have not consumed all of War History Online yet. The article, I really don't want to give the article title away just yet, but we'll get there.
Oh,
A timesherald.com opinion article on are you ready for this?
I'm braced.
The world's largest denture maker, Liechtenstein. So there's that.
I really want to know the hidden named article now.
Don't you though? But Britannica.com article on the history of Liechtenstein. That's just Liechtenstein/history.
I didn't know they had. Oh, it's Britannica, not. I was thinking dictionary.com. I was like, they have article. Okay, carry on, carry on. Ignore
Britannica.
me.
WeAreTheMighty.com, the mighty history of Liechtenstein's army.
Okay.
Um, Fee.org article, Russia almost sold Alaska to its tiny European country instead of the United States.
I hate when that happens.
I know. I did out of curiosity pull up a Wikipedia article called "The House of Liechtenstein" because I had a heraldic ancestry question, and I figured they can answer it, and they kind of did because I needed to know about Ulrich von Liechtenstein. And a spectator.com.uk article called "Liechtenstein is utterly ridiculous," but that's a big part of its appeal. And the U.S. Embassy, like web portal for Liechtenstein. I'm gonna get you through the boring part, even though it's pretty wild too. Liechtenstein is only 62 square meters. It's actually smaller than Washington, D.C. Or excuse me, 62 square miles.
I could run a country that small.
Right? It is the only country that's named after its ruling family, which incidentally purchased it about 300 years ago.
Actually, that checks. I feel like money buys a lot.
Doesn't it? It is also the only European monarchy today that still has actual real political power.
Oh.
Like it is an absolute monarchy, but it does have a parliament and it does have like constitutional, like there are other people that help run the country, but the monarchy is the final result, like the end all be all.
To be fair, if I were part of the Liechtenstein government or royal family, I think I would win every argument by saying, I own you.
Yeah, I'll get there
Oh,
because
okay.
they don't appear by any accounts to be that type of people. And
Night.
you'll find out why in just a minute.
Okay.
Liechtenstein has a somewhat complicated and long history, but I'm just going to start in 1699 with the purchase of the county of Vaduz, and then in 1612, the additional purchase of the county of Schellenberg.
So they buy their country incrementally?
Essentially, yes. So the without getting it, because it's kind of convoluted, but without getting into a huge portion of the further backstory, the the Liechtenstein family were serving as advisors to the Habsburgs for centuries, probably since the 13th century,
Okay.
but without any landed gentry of their own. So they couldn't be styled as princes or dukes or anything like that. They were just incredibly wealthy advisors. So they want to be styled as princes. They want to have power. They want
Well,
to
yeah,
have a seat at the Habsburg head table, right?
because this
So,
is during that time. I mean, at some point, oh, gosh, when was it? There was a point in royal history where if you were a merchant, you could only wear specific colors, and if you were royalty, you could only wear specific colors. And oftentimes merchants had more money than the royalty, and it kind of
right,
chapped their hides that they weren't allowed to wear specific colors
right,
to kind of keep them in their place. So yeah, I would be rather miffed as well.
right. Okay. So, they want a seat at the table and they want to be given the credit that's due them. So they they just purchase it. They just they just buy it. And the former people that were kind of ruling over that area were they went through some rather unfortunate times. They went through the plague and they went through some wars and some witch hunts, and the Liechtensteins were like, we're gonna handle this. Like, we're gonna take over, we're gonna buy you out. In 1712, the Holy Roman Emperor Charles VI declares it a, are you ready for this word? Reichsfürstentinium, or an imperial principality.
So he labels their land that?
Yeah, so he
Okay.
basically styles them as princes, and he makes Liechtenstein an imperial principality, which is exactly what the family wants. Now they have a seat at the table, they have a title, they have a castle. Like, they're golden, they're happy campers. However, no one from the family chooses to live there until sometime later.
Like how much later? Like
Like,
you have too much money when you let your castle sit dormant.
it was at least 100 years,
That's quite a bit of money. I would imagine my
right?
castle falling into disrepair.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to assume that they I kind of get the image that this area of the world is that valley that kind of lies, it's just next to Switzerland and Austria and Germany, and it's that kind of peaceful or idyllic, like, golden valley, if you will.
Right.
And I have a feeling that the people that have lived there have been self sufficient the whole time. Like, it doesn't seem like the people that were in power before the Liechtensteins did a ton in the way of being a full-fledged, lack of a better word, monarch or
Okay.
ruler. So I get the vibe that the your everyday human doesn't care one way or the other. Like, they're just going on about their life.
Okay.
That's at least what I've gathered. So, um we're gonna fast forward a little bit to our friend Napoleon.
All right.
Mm-hmm. During his conquest, he dissolves the Holy Roman Empire, and Liechtenstein is now released as an imperial state and allowed to join what Napoleon calls the Rhine Confederation in 1806. Liechtenstein finally wins its sole sovereignty, so it is no longer just a principality of the Holy Roman Empire, but it is officially cut ties. It's its own guy. The next two little blurbs I'm going to give to you come from the U.S. Embassy page on Liechtenstein, and they did a really great job of making it simple and straightforward to understand what happens over the next couple hundred years. But basically, Napoleon's defeat leads to the dissolution of the Rhine Confederation in 1813.
Okay.
Liechtenstein goes on to represent itself at the Congress of Vienna and becomes one of the 39 new member states of the German Confederation, thereby reconfirming its sovereignty. In order to meet the obligations under the German Confederation, Prince Johann II granted the principality a limited constitution in 1818.
What does it mean to have a limited constitution?
I think it implies, and I could be wrong, so listeners out there, if I'm wrong on this, please call me out. I think it implies that there is a constitution, however, he remains absolute power. So even with the constitution, he's still the final say.
Okay.
So it doesn't really matter what the constitution says. If the prince wants it, the prince gets it. That's the way I understand it. I could be very
Whatever
wrong.
prince he wants,
Right.
prince he gets.
Pretty much. But the people don't seem to mind this. That all seems to work out just fine for them. Under the Confederation, Liechtenstein is also compelled to maintain a military force. The Austro-Prussian War, in which Austria mobilizes the German Confederation against Prussia, ends with the defeat of Austria and the dissolution of the German Confederation,
Wait, wait,
thus
wait, wait, wait.
releasing.
Back up a second. I'm going to ask you to repeat the year, and I'm going to ask you how likely this could be that Liechtenstein had to supply troops to the time that, oh, wait, no, because the Holy Roman Empire. Okay, I'll finish my thought and then I'll explain to you why it's not. I was going to ask you if they had to donate troops to the war that the Holy Roman Emperor had to fight against the Ottomans in one of your previous stories,
The
where
Battle of
they,
Cransvies?
yes. And then I realized halfway through that statement that no, 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 the Holy Roman Empire had dissolved and now they were their own country. Okay, there we go.
They are their own country. However, it is the same people groups.
So
So,
Liechtenstein and their people were there before they were their own sovereign entity.
correct. So, the likelihood that during that delightful battle with the Ottomans, that some Liechtensteiners were there is high. They might not have been called Liechtenstein yet, but they were there.
Okay, all right.
They did speak German. That is their language. So in the Austro-Prussian War, Austria mobilizes the German Confederation against Prussia, which ends with the defeat of Austria and the dissolution of the German Confederation. This releases Liechtenstein from its compulsory military force and gives the parliament the opportunity to refuse to fund any more military expenditures.
Oh, imagine how much budget we would have for public education and mental health.
Right? In 1868, reigning Prince Johann II acquiesced to Parliament's wishes and disbanded the 80-man strong army.
I've been on field trips bigger.
Wait till you hear the end of the story because that's going to be so much funnier. The embassy website goes on to say that until World War I, Liechtenstein was economically oriented towards the Austria-Hungary by means of a customs treaty signed in 1852. Liechtenstein remains neutral during World War I, but it is severely affected by the economic measures which are levied against Austria-Hungary, which leads to widespread hunger and a full stop on industrial output. Also, Liechtenstein is very small, so they don't bring a lot to the table in the ways of natural resources. So keep that in mind. Due to the general unrest after the war, a new constitution allowing for significant direct democracy was negotiated and ratified by Prince Johann II in 1921. Following the collapse of the Austro-Hungarian Empire in 1918, Liechtenstein reoriented itself economically with Switzerland, their delightful big brother. This relationship was stabilized by a joint customs treaty and the introduction of the Swiss franc as the official currency by 1924.
I love hearing when countries adopt another country's currency as their own. That is the laziest move that I am here for.
Right? Upon Germany's annexation of Austria in 1938, Prince Franz Joseph II becomes the first reigning prince to take up residence in Vaduz Castle. 1938. They became a country in 1712.
1938, women in the US had already been voting for 18 years.
Mm-hmm. They have already owned the country for 200 years, but this is the first time someone has decided to live there.
1938 feels like a very bizarre year to move into a castle,
Yeah, I'm just
unless
saying.
you bought it off of the nobility on an auction off eBay.
Yeah, no, he finally just decided it was time to move. Um, Along with Switzerland, Liechtenstein remained successfully neutral during World War II and super benefited from the customs and currency union with Switzerland. In World War II, Liechtenstein did um, prohibit Nazi involvement in their country, but they were otherwise neutral. So
But how many spies were in Liechtenstein? I feel like that's another question I need answered.
I don't have that answer, but I wish I did because I'm telling you, everything I read left me with more questions.
Okay, so at the end of this, we need to become independently wealthy and move to Liechtenstein for at least a year for our
For
own
research
independent
purposes.
research. Yeah,
Yeah.
for
So,
science.
exactly. I'm gonna hit you with a couple of fun facts about Liechtenstein. Um, they have 90-minute long lunches, and they are encouraged to be quiet during this time, and also after 10 p.m.
Oh, that
Isn't
was
that heavenly?
just, mm,
Right?
don't bother me. I'm eating.
Right? I can fully get behind this, but it also doesn't hurt that the GDP of Liechtenstein's residents is roughly 180,000 a year
But you said that's what?
per
Okay,
person.
okay, hold on. Repeat that because that did not lodge in my brain.
The GDP
Yes.
of the residents of Liechtenstein
Okay,
is
so
roughly 180,000 a year per person. They are living very comfortably. It's
so but what is that in
making
US dollars in today's money? Because I feel like I need my comeuppance and I need to realize that it's really only 30,000 US
it's
dollars
Swiss
today.
francs. We're
Gosh dang
screwed.
it.
Yeah. So that does make it one of the wealthiest countries. I get, does that have something to do with the 90-minute lunches? I don't know, but I think that it does. Um, the
Next you're gonna
current
say they have 4-day work weeks as well.
I didn't want to know. Um, the current reigning prince has the only private Da Vinci held in his collection,
Dang, that is a
right?
flex.
Right? It share like I said before, it shares its borders with Switzerland to the west and south, as well as Austria to the east and north, and has a population of roughly 39,000 people.
So that is a country where everybody knows everyone.
Yeah, its population density is roughly 614 people per square mile.
614 per square mile.
Yeah, which
And
is
that is
incredibly low compared to
right. That's cities
every other place.
and rural lands.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Um, every year, this is literally my favorite fact about Liechtenstein. Every year, the entire population is invited to celebrate their national holiday at the Vaduz Castle by having a beer with the Crown Prince Hans Adams II.
What?
Dead
I want
serious.
to see the Instagram post of him doing the crown prince doing cake stands.
It could be a thing. There's a delightful fireworks show and a little bit of a festival, but the entire population and anybody who might be visiting or is willing to make the trek is more than invited to come pop a top with the prince.
Shut this down and buy a plane ticket. We've got
We
places
got
to
to go,
be.
right? Um, as far as from what I can tell, and maybe I'm choosing to look at this with blinders, but there's only really two bad marks on Liechtenstein's history. There was a massive tax evasion scheme involving the Liechtensteiners banks in 2008, but the government moved quickly to reinsure investors and foreign leaders, and a transparency and reform package was adopted in 2009. The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development removed Liechtenstein from its blacklists of tax haven. So Liechtenstein was only they were only in trouble for like a year.
So what you're saying is they looked at this blot on their reputation and they decided to do something about it?
Pretty much, yeah. They decided that they were going to handle it and get back in the right light and be transparent about their banking system.
I wonder what that's like.
Unclear. But I think it's fabulous for them, and I really appreciate it. I
This is
want to
like reading a
say,
fairy tale. Like all of this is a fairy tale.
does it even sound real? Like,
No, this sounds like something where I'm like, okay, but now get to the nitty gritty where we realize that the crown prince also does all kinds of really awful, nefarious things. And only the very worst ones are coming to my mind, and they're not entertaining. So I'm not going to say them out loud.
yeah, right. Okay, so the treaty in 2011, Liechtenstein is ceded to the, I'm going to say this wrong, Schengen Agreement,
Okay.
one of the EU's foundational documents, which allows relaxed border controls between its signers, enabling passport-free travel within that area. I think, are you familiar with that? Where
Yeah, it's
like,
like where if you're in the EU, once you get into an EU country and you pass customs, and yeah,
right,
yeah.
right, okay. So the powers of the monarchy were then reaffirmed in July of 2012 when voters overwhelmingly rejected a measure that would have stripped Prince Alois, I think is how you say his name. He is the son of the current monarch. Would have stripped him of the right to veto referenda. So basically, that just reaffirmed that they want this family in charge and they want them to be the final say. So even though there's a parliament and a constitution, the crown princes seem to be doing it right and their people seem to love what they've got going on.
Dang.
And also, I looked at a picture of the current reigning crown prince, and he looks so stinking sweet that I'm like, "Are you sure you're real?"
Now,
Because
okay, could you imagine? Because like I'm going to compare this to Queen Elizabeth and, having watched the entire Crown series. So I am an expert on the royal family
okay, hit me.
because those are my credentials. But when you're watching like the earlier seasons and you see like how she's modernizing the monarchy and how she's allowing the firm to have, be more transparent and, like, but she also like during Queen Elizabeth's reign, watched the Tsar and Tsarina of Russia fall, who were related to her. Like she watched all
Right.
of these imperial powers fall. I can only imagine the room, as she's discussing with advisors on how modernizing the institution and giving the people more power and becoming more of a figurehead. And they're saying, but Liechtenstein, we could hold everything. We could be the absolute monarch. We could still do this.
I feel like though she's gonna have to invite a boatload of people to the palace for a beer. I mean, I think that's what wins him over, right? Like I get this image. He's just like in his cookout apron, like flipping schnitzel or something.
Oh my
Like,
gosh.
like that's totally what I see in my brain.
This becomes more and more idyllic. I am ready for my lederhosen.
Same. Um, the other fact that made me a little bit flustered was that women didn't get the right to vote until 1984. I was
Oh,
born in 1984.
yeah,
Yeah.
same.
So that didn't sit well with me, but then I thought about the fact that like the people continue to vote in favor of the ruling monarch and they continue to have these incredible freedoms. So like maybe for them it wasn't the worst.
Yeah,
I
because
don't know.
now I want to know gender pay gap. I want to know, like, you hear about how gender equal Iceland is
Right?
and how all of the advancements they've made. And it was just because they sat down, what, in the 70s and they were like, no, we're done with this. And,
Right.
yeah. And they just like made quick sweeping reform. So I almost wonder if, like, A, it wasn't that bad. B, it's like, okay, like, I don't know.
Well, and the interesting thing about it is the little bit on this fact that I read was that and I could have gone into it more, but this isn't the this isn't the part of the story I came to tell, so I didn't. But they tried to reform that in the Constitution earlier, like in the early 70s, but it got voted against. Like they were just like, no, we're good. And so some suffragettes were like, no, 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 we really want the right to vote. And so they talked about it again and again. And finally in 1984, they were like, okay, yeah, let's do it. But it doesn't, from what I can tell, and like I said, I didn't read a ton on it, but it doesn't seem like to me they were marching in the streets about it.
And how if your country is 62 square miles, how niche is that to try to find books on of like I'm looking for Liechtenstein suffragettes and all 14 of them.
There is a picture. I'll try to find it and send it to you of like I don't know, maybe six women sitting at a table that they look like maybe it was like the first time they got to vote, and so they've got the paperwork, in front of them and
Yeah.
their sign. And it's so funny because the picture is in black and white, implying that it was ages ago.
Oh,
But I was like, so are these the six people that actually like really wanted to vote, and everybody else was like, meh, I'm good.
okay. So you bring up a good point. Like when we look at pictures of civil rights movements or things like that, we see black and white. And it
Right.
is for that reason to imply this was so long ago. But Liechtenstein's voting women, that could have been a Polaroid.
Absolutely. And it's so funny because the everything about the picture is just like, wait, what? Like they appear to be sitting on a stage that has like a theater curtain behind them.
Yep.
So in my brain I immediately was like, oh, this is clearly like a village city council meeting, and like their town hall also works as the local gym and theater for children. Like because they're so small, like that's exactly where my brain went, and it's just these six women that like want to vote. So I guess we'll give them the right to vote. Here you go, ladies. Like,
But given the timeline, they could have done their first vote and then went to a jazzercise class
and then had a beer with the prince.
and
Absolutely.
then went and played Dungeons and Dragons.
Exactly. And still been home in time for dinner and schnitzel. Just
This
saying.
timeline is weird.
Everything about it is weird. So now I'm going to get into the fun stuff because if it wasn't weird enough, Russia did offer Alaska to Liechtenstein before the US bought it in 1867. Alaska is roughly 11,000 times bigger and
Now,
very far away.
to be fair, Alaska is also very far away from Washington.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I get that. I imagine Liechtenstein was like, nah, man, we're good. We're very happy with our swath of land. We
Yeah,
don't need a frozen tundra. Thank you, though. Um,
those
like I
people
said,
are weird. Our people don't even want to vote. They just want to have beers. We can't
pretty
import
much,
everybody from Alaska here for the beer.
pretty much, their population is substantially bigger.
Was it?
I'm sure it was. They only had 39, like today, they only have 39,000 residents.
Yeah, but there's like 6 people in Alaska.
Oh, let's Google it. I'm Googling it right now because I need to know. What is the pop?
Now, hold on. What year did Alaska offer that or Russia offer that?
1867.
Okay, I'm going to look that up.
In 21, there was 732,000 people in Alaska.
Repeat that.
Oh, sorry, hold on. 732,000 people living in Alaska.
Okay. Okay. So still less people than the Portland metropolis
Yep.
or Portland metro area. Okay.
Yep. In 1867, the population was.
That only goes to 2010.
Well, there is an article listing that between 1830 and 1863, population ranged in Alaska between 11,000 and 7,000, depending on the year.
11,000?
Yeah, in 1880, the population was 33,000 people.
33,000 people.
Yep.
That 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 is the population of what? Atwater, California?
Yeah, I think so. Few more fun facts. Liechtenstein does not have a military, as I said before. It was disbanded in 1868, making it one of only 22 countries in the world today without any armed forces.
Wow.
Switzerland guards them and even represents them in some diplomatic instances. So Switzerland is legitimately the big brother. Like they handle Liechtenstein for Liechtenstein.
I want Switzerland to be my big brother.
Right? Allow me to tell you what brought us here in the first place.
Ooh, here is the actual map of rabbit trails.
Uh-huh. Switzerland has been a neutral country since 1515.
To be fair, the mountains do a very decent job of helping them maintain their own borders.
In fact, however, even though they have been neutral since 1515, Switzerland has invaded Liechtenstein 3 times
Look, it's that typical big brother, little brother
on
relationship.
accident.
On accident? You
Yep.
don't accident. Okay, I'm an older sister and I have been a terror to my younger. That does not mean that when I said things were accidents, that they were.
Allow me to tell you the stories. On December 5th of 1985, a very cold and blustery day, despite this
1985?
1985, yeah, we were a year old.
Okay.
Um, Despite the weather, the Swiss go out on a training exercise involving surface-to-air missiles.
Okay.
Please remember, it is very cold and it is very windy. They hit the launch button, and the super wind helps direct the missiles right into Liechtenstein's ban-walled forest, thus igniting a huge forest fire, only made bigger by the wind.
I feel like some simple math prior to could have highlighted the possibility of this uh-oh.
Mm-hmm. So at this point, like I said, Switzerland and Liechtenstein, they share a great bond, with Switzerland acting as the big bro to Liechtenstein. However, this did cause a bit of a tussle, and it is said that there was talk about blaming either the the failing either on the weather or faulty equipment, given that Switzerland doesn't make its own rockets.
Okay,
So,
but nothing on the person who signed off on the locality of the training exercise or the person who should have done the math.
nope. So, so anyway, Switzerland, like, I don't know, Venmos them several $1 million to cover the damages. Morehistory.com has this to say, quote, rumor has it that the entire affair was eventually settled over a case of white wine or two and perhaps some fondue. You'd think that'd be the
I
last
mean,
time.
honestly, okay, this does sound like, adult siblings fighting.
Doesn't it? Um, on October 13 in 1992, less than 10 years later, invasion number 2 happens. Some Swiss army cadets are out on maneuvers. They are instructed to set up an observation post in this village of Tressenberg. It's a wee and gorgeous village with a very small population of about 2,564 people.
That is such, my high school was 2,000 students.
Right? So your high school as a village.
I would hate it
However,
there. I would riot.
well, that's why we're moving to Liechtenstein, clearly.
Okay. Okay.
However, the wonderful people of Tressenberg, I hope I'm saying that right, speak a very distinct German dialect that dates back to the 14th century. The Swiss also speak German, but that's neither here nor there because the people of Tressenberg's dialect is so different. The Swiss army leadership has the cadets set up shop, basically forgetting that Tressenberg is not actually in their country.
Whoops.
Oops.
My
The
bad.
cadets, right? Ooh, sorry about that. The cadets are just doing what they're told to do, and they probably forgot about it too. In their defense, there are no border posts, and people can travel freely between the nations, and they even share a currency, right? So, like, what do they know? This only caused confusion and awkwardness for the locals and some wounded pride for the Swiss,
When a
having
tax collector, have a tax collector break it up. Come on, that's what's going to happen, right?
no. Um this all this did was add to the conversation of the Swiss disbanding their military, which was still being talked about up until at least 2016.
Wait, so Switzerland no longer has it? That's how they solved it,
No,
is they just
like
don't have a military?
no, they it was, I guess, so people had been talking about that in the past, and this only added to that. Like, look, you've already invaded Liechtenstein twice. Clearly, your leadership is in need of a map and a mathematician.
Either a map or just like, hey, we're going to be doing some stuff in your backyard.
A memo, maybe?
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
yo, Princey, here's a couple barrels of Stella, and we're going to be doing some stuff there, but we'll see you for your celebration, right? Like,
Yep. So, if that wasn't embarrassing enough, invasion number 3
what's
on
funny
March
is
1st.
all three happened during our lifetimes.
Yeah. On March 1st, it's another dark and very stormy day, and 171 Swiss infantrymen are trudging their way through another training exercise, armed with their iconic Swiss Army knives that evidently don't have a compass or GPS. And they were smacked right in the face with a very heavy downpour. At least that's the official story. They kept on trudging, but it is cold, it is dark, and it is very stormy. And by morning, they realize they have marched over a mile into Liechtenstein before someone figures it out and turns everybody around and marches them right back home. It seems it was a bit embarrassing on both sides, so both sides heavily downplayed the story or never even covered it to begin with. Allow me to hit you with one more delightful Liechtenstein fact. Are you ready for this?
Go on.
In 1866, because you had to hear about the accidental invasions first. In 1866, during the Austrian Prussian War, while they still had a standing army, Liechtenstein sent 80 men to guard the Brenner Pass, which resides between Austria and Italy,
Okay.
while 20 soldiers remained at home to guard Liechtenstein.
Oh my gosh. Like
So,
literal classroom sizes.
yes. So these 80 men, they sit at the pass, they drink, they play cards, they smoke their pipes, never once engage in any battles. After the Prussians win the war, the Liechtensteiners march home. But something was amiss. They left home with 80 soldiers, but
And they come
returned with
home with
81.
81.
Yep.
That was this story.
Yep.
Oh,
Yep. He was either an Austrian liaison officer or a friendly Italian defector. No one's really knows for sure, but they know one extra man came home. Liechtenstein's army was disbanded 2 years later.
but did he keep his citizenship? Because that seems to be the real win.
I feel like he probably did, but what makes me laugh so hard is knowing that their army was only 80 men big.
100 because they left 20 at home. 80
Right.
plus 20 is 100.
Is 100, but by the time they disbanded the army, there was only 80. So
Oh
I'm going to
my
assume 20
goodness.
of them retired.
And okay, if a fifth of your army retires, that is massive.
That leaves you with 80.
I mean, if we reduced our standing force by a fifth, that would be a massive reduction. That is mind-boggling, especially when you can like when you're thinking about numbers so small as like there are lecture classes in colleges that are 80 to 100 people. There are kindergarten classrooms that are 20 kids big. And
Like,
that said, I feel like now releasing kindergartners to defend a castle could be a hilarious move.
I mean, and here's the thing. Like, there is not a single point of this story where I didn't go, this place does not exist. Like,
Yeah.
this is so silly.
The
And
writers of a
so
made-for-TV movie made a
on
country.
Hallmark, built a country. Like, I love this
He is
place.
a Swiss soldier that unknowingly invades this country.
Again.
She is a owner of a bookstore of the town that was invaded. Will they find
Tressenberg.
love this Christmas? Find out on Hallmark.
Exactly what it is. Or he could be her billionaire boyfriend denture maker.
Yeah, so how the heck did dentures make into this? Thank you for bringing that up because that is something that we need to close the loop on now.
Okay, so like I said, the GDP of Liechtenstein is roughly $180,000 per person
Is it all dentures?
a year. No, that's just one man. He's their only billionaire, and he makes dentures and teeth implants because like I said before, given Liechtenstein's size, natural resources aren't
Plentiful.
plentiful, right? So their export business had to rely elsewhere. And this individual, which unfortunately I thought I had his name in my notes, but I don't, he happens to be the biggest exporter of fake teeth.
But now, okay, let's remove the outlier from the equation. Do we know what the average person makes? Because he is pulling up the average.
Well, it other sources that don't mention the denture guy continually say they're right around 180 grand a year.
But like, okay, you have mean, median, and mode for averages, right? Like, and
Right.
if the mean is 180, but that includes the millionaire, what is
I feel like he's the one outlier and doesn't get counted because they only have the one. It's like you're a thousandaire or the 1 billionaire. There's no in between.
all right? I mean, I guess I'll accept it because there's only 3 books written on Liechtenstein.
And two of them are just written on beer recipes and schnitzel. So this
I
country
don't know
can't
how
be
to
real.
think about this. This is so backwards to me.
Is this not the silliest story you've ever heard?
I mean, it is a country that is hundreds of years old, incredibly small, exports basically only dentures, and throws kegers.
Yep, every year. Yeah. And this particular swath of land has been continually inhabited since the Romans.
I don't have a schema for this, Angie.
You're welcome.
You've broken me. This is
I
another episode where we're going to end. I'm frustrated because I now have to go do all the research that I expected you to spoon feed me, and all you did was give me more questions.
Listen, here's the thing. Remember how I said every question I had created more questions? I genuinely believe you will never find all the answers.
Okay, but now we have to go
Not
back to
because
Lederhosen.
not because you specifically can't, but because every new information leads to a new question.
But how did you get to Lederhosen? I need to tie that up too.
Okay, so I have been telling Ian about Liechtenstein for days because this is one of my very favorite stories. And like Tuesday rolled around, Wednesday rolled around, and he was like, well, she's talking about Liechtenstein, and Liechtenstein's close to Bavaria, and Bavaria wears lederhosen. We're going to learn about lederhosen. So what I learned about lederhosen is, and I think this is very silly, um, lederhosen was originally created for like the working class people.
Okay.
And that's silly to me because have you ever seen a lederhosen that wasn't beautiful?
I no, because I've only seen the ones when you go to like the October fests where they pay
Right.
some actor to walk around in that very itchy, scratchy deal.
Evidently if they were made of leather, and this whole area of the world wore some version of lederhosen. And because the man knew I was stuck on Liechtenstein, he thought he would bring another element to the image and give me a visual of what Heath Ledger would have looked like when he was actually residing at home as Ulrich von Liechtenstein.
Share your screen. I need to see this now.
I don't have a picture of it. That's just in my brain.
Okay, well, all
Oh,
right.
and to add to Ulrich von Liechtenstein, because I'm this kind of person, I pondered the name and thought, I wonder if that old von Liechtenstein was actually related to the Liechtensteins.
Yes?
There was a real Ulrich von Liechtenstein in the 1200s. He was a minstrel and a page, and from a very wealthy Liechtenstein family.
Did he
I
end up
can
becoming a
only,
jouster?
I, no, but he was a singer and a bard.
Okay. All right. So the story has some basis in.
Right. Uh, I can only assume he's related to the Liechtenstein family, but am without definitive proof. But
No,
it did
we are the lesser Liechtensteins. We have no royal blood. We are just simple barn
Liechtensteins.
dwellers. We just muck the stalls.
Yeah, that's I, listen, I don't care. Ulrich von Liechtenstein was a real man. Von Liechtenstein was a real man. He was a bard. He told great stories. He has some poems.
Give a coin to your witcher.
Oh, Valley of Plenty. So yeah, there's the story that's kept me up every night this week.
Yours was much more entertaining and novel than my like Mrs. Sherlock Holmes that was like so like fact heavy and not near as fun and silly.
I thought your story was magnificent.
I want to do something light next time because, talking about like white slavers and, death and murder investigations.
Stabby stuff.
Yeah. Like, I mean, strangely, that's where I go to relax. But when I hear something joyful and jolly, I'm like, holy cow,
These people aren't real.
you
I'm
can find
convinced.
dopamine in these stories? Like, my
Oh,
goodness.
like I could not stop laughing. Everything I learned just got funnier and funnier. Like, are you people serious? At one point I learned this fact isn't in my story, but at one point they participated in I want to say it was the 1936 Olympics, only to discover that their flag is a little bit too similar to the Haitian flag. So next year they came back with an added crown so it would look slightly different.
Okay, so their
I want to be their
flags,
PR guy.
their
Like,
flags is basically the Milli Vanilli, or not Milli Vanilli, the Vanilla Ice. Like, no, my song goes doon doo doo doon doo doo doon duh. And their song goes, it's like when
yes,
our flag has our white stripe or whatever is 3.8 of the space. Theirs is,
four.
yeah, see, completely different. And their color here is just a hair more green than ours. Like you can see it, right? It's so blindingly obvious.
It's just so silly. I just want to be their PR guy. Like, I can't imagine them to have PR nightmares. Like, even the tax invasion problem, like, that was so readily handled and taken with such great care that it's like, do they even have a PR guy? Or are they
The
or their own PR guy?
the
Like,
prince calls the one CPA in the country, and the CPA goes, I'm on it, right? Like, yeah, I know.
you
It
know,
I'll get you the report Tuesday because trust me, I'm pretty ticked off about this too.
and done, right? Like, and could they be more perfect? Could they be sillier? Can we go have a beer with the prince? Like,
Find out when they do that, and then maybe we could, do like a podcast road trip. Like, I'm
we
not
came to interview the Prince of Liechtenstein.
I'm not joking, right? Like we'll spend, hopefully it's just happened so we can spend a year getting our credentials going and like developing a leadership or a listenership in Liechtenstein. And then we can campaign to like do like interview with the crown prince.
I love it. Liech. What day is Liechtenstein's national holidays? August 15th.
August 15th. Okay, so it'll have to be August 15th of 2024 or 25, truly, because we're just not going to pull that off in 23. I'm still going to be
Same.
in physical therapy for the knee.
Here, I don't know if you can clearly look at how cute they
They,
are.
they are adorable.
Right?
Okay,
Like,
so I hate to do this, but I really do have to wrap this up because I have to, get everything ready for a karate class starting here in a bit.
no, I get to go to the dump today, so I have to get ready for that. I'm very excited.
Wow, that both requires us to have outfit updates.
Yeah, I cannot wear my comfy pants to the dump.
No, you gotta dress like you're headed to Walmart.
You know, babe. You know.
So, if you have enjoyed our antics and if you are thinking that Liechtenstein is the country for you and you want to figure out how you can support us and help us grow as we decide to grow our listenership in one 62 square mile chunk of Europe so that we can campaign to all come together as a podcast group and have beer with the prince. Rate, review, subscribe, do everything you can to help our podcast grow, and you will become a Liechtensteinite. And we will get this.
Liechtensteiner. They're called Liechtensteiners.
Liechtensteiners.
I had to Google it
Okay.
because I was like, what do you call these people? Please tell me it's easier than Liechtenstein.
We could be unhinged history Steiners, and we could do this together. And the only way we can is if we support each other. But if you're like, oh my gosh, Angie forgot about the one time in 1875 where Liechtenstein was invaded, and I can't believe you would dare leave that out, you can email us at unhinged.history@gmail. Or unhinged.historypod@gmail.com. It helps if I
I
give the
dare
actual
you.
correct. Yeah, and like we're here to learn. Like I don't know if you've learned that about us, but yeah, we need to know whatever bizarre fact. If you are a descendant of the founder of Liechtenstein, but don't like you didn't want to live in the castle, we're here for that too.
The
Because that
lesser
sounds just
Liechtensteins.
yeah, the lesser Liechtenstein. Let us know. And on that note, goodbye.
Bye.